Keir Starmer hides behind technicalities. I mean, he's been hiding behind the independent process technicality for a while, when it's actually, we have now discovered that the independent process ended in December. Now he's hiding behind the NEC. As I said, the NEC will rubber stamp the list of candidates in front of them. So if Diane Abbott is a candidate and she is brought to us on the list, then obviously the NEC will decide. Now the NEC will have a short discussion, and then they will vote on whether Diane will be candidate or not.
But Mish, it won't. Mish, who will put her on that list? Whose decision will it be to decide?
It will be the leadership's decision to put her on the list or not, because at the end of the day, the leadership has a majority on the NEC. If the NEC was to have a vote, then Keir Starmer's will be delivered by the NEC, because Keir Starmer holds a majority on the NEC. So when Keir Starmer says, "Oh, the NEC will decide," at the end of the day, it's more lawyer talk. It's him and his faction which will actually decide whether Diane Abbott is a Labour MP or not.
If Labour thought the Prime Minister's rain-soaked election pitch wasn't a great start, the past 48 hours have been pretty unedifying, some say. Confusion about the future of Diane Abbott and the apparent suspension of 2 more candidates has cast a shadow over the campaign. You'll have heard us mention the Labour Party's National Executive Committee a fair bit this morning. It's the governing body of the party. They make the final decisions, and we can speak now to one of its members, Mish Rahman. Good morning. Mish, are you there with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
What do you make of Diane Abbott's treatment so far? We've heard from West Eating yesterday, Darren Jones today, who say that nothing's been decided. It's all up for the National Executive Committee to work out what happens next. Does it feel right to you how this has been handled?
Of course, it does not feel right to me, the way that Keir Starmer has treated Britain's first black woman MP is appalling. It's vindictive. It's cruel, it's humiliating, and it's just a slap in the face, not just to Diane, who he called a trailblazer, and everybody that comes on your show and describes Diane calls a trailblazer, but then refuses to say whether she would be welcome into the Labour Party as a candidate on the same breath, while they would welcome a far-right Tory like Natalie Elphicke. So this is a deplorable episode. And this will go down in the Labour halls of infamy.
I mentioned a number of other suspensions, two related this morning, particularly on the left wing of the party. Is that how you see this? Is it a purge of the left?
Well, what this is, and I'll quote one of my NEC colleagues who was parachuted into a safe seat in North Durham yesterday, who said in 2018 that, and this is his quote, it's on Twitter, I tweeted it half an hour ago, "A big component of deselection fever is careerism, people trying to grab jobs as MPs during a narrow window while their faction has power nationally." Now, he said that in 2018, and that's perfectly coined for what this is right now.
Just explain that to people who might be listening to you, and they will not, probably many of us don't understand the intricacies of the Labour process for candidates. What you're suggesting is that people are being removed from some seats and others are being placed into those seats at very short notice.
Absolutely. That is exactly what's happening. You've explained it perfectly, Kate.
And you are a member of the National Executive Committee. We've been talking about the NEC quite a lot on the programme, because that's what Labour references when they talk about Diane Abbott's future now. They say it's a discussion and a decision for the NEC. Do you have any role in that at all?
I am an NEC member, so I will be sitting on the NEC meeting when the candidates are rubber stamped. So before every election, there'll be a meeting where candidates are rubber stamped. So you'll get the list of 650 candidates who will come in front of you. There might be some discussion. Obviously, you've got 650 candidates to rubber stamp, so you can't expect everybody to be discussed. So there might be some discussion, and then there'll be a rubber stamping process. So I'll be part of that. We don't know the date yet. It's sometime next week, most likely.
So what's going to happen in Diane Abbott's case then? What are you expecting to happen there?
Well, this is the thing. Now, Keir Starmer hides behind technicalities. I mean, he's been hiding behind the independent process technicality for a while, when it's actually, we have now discovered that the independent process ended in December. Now he's hiding behind the NEC. As I said, the NEC will rubber stamp the list of candidates in front of them. So if Diane Abbott is a candidate, and she's brought to us on the list, then obviously the NEC will decide. Now the NEC will have a short discussion, and then they will vote on whether Diane will be candidate or not.
But
And
Mish,
the
it won't.
NEC,
Mish,
and
who will put her on that list? Whose decision will it be to
it will be
decide?
it will be the leadership's decision to put her on the list or not, because at the end of the day, the leadership has a majority on the NEC. If the NEC was to have a vote, then Keir Starmer's will be delivered by the NEC, because Keir Starmer holds a majority on the NEC. So when Keir Starmer says, "Oh, the NEC will decide," at the end of the day, it's more lawyer talk. It's him and his faction which will actually decide whether Diane Abbott is a Labour MP or not.
Mish Rahman, who is a member of the Labour Party NEC, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, let's turn now to Gabriel Pogrund, who is the Sunday Times' Whitehall editor and, of course, expert in all of this stuff, all the behind-the-scenes Labour toing and froing. Gabriel, good morning.
Morning.
I want to broaden this out a little bit from just talking about Diane Abbott, although that is incredibly important for lots of people. What does this look like to you? We're seeing candidates, in some cases, barred from standing. We're seeing others put into those seats at the very last minute. Is this normal behaviour from any political party? Is this a very Labour thing? Is this a very Starmer thing?
I mean, I don't think one could say that selecting candidates or parliamentarians in the image of a leader is kind of limited to the Labour tradition. I mean, lot of leaders will seek to imprint themselves and their politics on the complexion of their backbenchers or people standing to be on the backbenches. We saw that with Boris Johnson when he suspended MPs during the Brexit years. But I have to say that, the bureaucratic nature of this all, and the manner in which it's happened is a classic, classic tale of Labour politics. And, there is an extent to which the party has been wrong-footed by the snap election called by Sunak, and suddenly all of these decisions, which would have been the subject of fixes and would have been engineered, but would have been choreographed much more delicately. They've all been kind of compressed into a single week. But what is actually happening over here? Beyond the noise, beyond the fact that the left are crying foul. I mean, this is the fulfillment of the second phase of Keir Starmer's leadership. We had the first phase, the unity phase, the soft left phase, the 10 pledges, kind of Corbynism in a suit phase. This is the ultimate kind of actualization of that second phase, which is a hardening politically of the project, and an overt repudiation of the hard left and what it represents. And it's no surprise that is being vividly illustrated in the manner in which he's selecting parliamentary candidates.
So in your opinion, is this actually a good thing for Keir Starmer, in the sense that he is demonstrating now his control over the very top levels of his own party?
I think when you can't do anything in opposition, one of the only things you can carry out to make a point to the public about your leadership skills is running a party. And Keir Starmer has used his handling of Jeremy Corbyn's situation in the past to make a point to the public about his decisiveness, his ruthlessness, his zero tolerance for racism, all the rest of it. I couldn't say whether it's good or bad, but there's no doubt that the sort of the medium is the message, the act of what he's doing here. I mean, in a way, sometimes you feel like with Keir Starmer, he doesn't necessarily articulate what he's doing in real time. He's not one who'll kind of sit down and offer a kind of meta-analysis of what he's up to in a given moment. But, in terms of showing rather than telling, he is making a point over here, and he is trying to demonstrate something about the shape of his leadership. My only question is whether now is necessarily the best time for it. That's more of a tactical question. I don't know if it will have an impact on the outcome of the election or the share of his vote, but it doesn't feel like it's necessarily the sort of thing that Labour will want to speak about, or at least because the execution's been slightly bungled, it's ended up kind of looking more like a row and less like a sort of act of definitive leadership.
And that's my final question to you, really, is how it looks to people who just watch it from the periphery, because not everybody is interested in finding out the workings of the NEC. But what they might take away from the back end of this week is that it looks like Keir Starmer has maybe lost control of the narrative a little bit, that word again that we use a lot in elections. Do you think that ultimately matters when all the polls are showing Labour are so far ahead of the Tories? Does it point towards, maybe a suggestion about how they might be in government as a party, or is it just kind of the run-of-the-mill of a campaign?
So I'd say two things. The first is to answer your last question. It probably doesn't matter. Let's be honest. I mean, in terms of voters' priorities, a list of things that people are likely to vote on the basis of at this coming election, Labour's ability to administer its NEC processes in a seemly manner is not one of them. I don't believe that this will have a kind of foundational impact on the election. Although what you outlined is true, that it does seem to be limiting the party's ability to have the conversation on its own terms at the moment. And I think that once this NEC meeting happens next week, that will probably be the last that we hear of it. But I think it is interesting, as you say, that this is not what the party's messages change. And I think there's a lovely phrase that people in Labour land use, which is, the longer NEC meetings last, the further Labour away is from government. And the more you hear that acronym and hear about the internal bureaucracy of the party, it does suggest that it's bit of Labour withdrawing into its comfort zone, which is talking about itself. So they will want to rapidly move on from this.
Gabriel Pogren, the Sunday Times' Whitehall editor. Thank you for your thoughts on that this morning.